Hello, everybody, and welcome to Real Life Gays podcast. I am your host, Gareth, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Lee. Hello, Lee. How are you?
Hello. I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Now, this week's episode, we are talking about all things trans. We have the iconic Miss Natasha joining us. So, Miss Natasha, how are you?
Hello, darlings. I'm absolutely fine today. How are we all?
Fabulous.
Very good.
So for those of you who don't know, Miss Natasha joined us in one of our episodes on our YouTube channel, and we've invited her back onto our podcast because there'll be a lot of you who have never seen our YouTube channel. Please feel free to go back and watch it. But what we're going to be doing today is discussing pretty much what we discussed during our episode on YouTube, just again, because we're reaching a different audience now. So over to you, Natasha. What we're going to ask you to do is just quickly introduce yourself briefly to our listener.
Hello, guys. My name is Miss Natasha DeVille. I'm the house mother of the House of DeVille. Next question. I'm kidding.
End of podcast.
Yeah, I am a London-based cabaret performer, transgendered woman, soon to be 55 next week. Can you imagine that? Gosh. Oh, lovely. Yeah, I work in the entertainment business. I am a lip sync assassin, allegedly. And what else would you like to know? It's always funny when people say, tell me about yourself.
I know. So, I mean, what we've got here is, my first question I've got is that because this is going to be a trans episode, so my first question is, at what age did you realize that you were different?
Ooh. God, so yeah. Well, when I was 7, I used to dress up with my sister in bed sheets, and I was called Madame Bouzelle. So I mean, that was a bit of a trigger warning, wasn't it? Really. I think when I was 9, my best friend, female, I walked in on her and she was totally naked, and I was like, "Oh, why aren't I the same?" And then my mum was like, "Well, I think you're a bit too young to, know about that stuff." She wasn't quite sure. So it was in my mid-teens, like 15, when I found out that this is what was wrong with me, or what needed to be fixed, and then realized there was a name to it. But this was in, the very early 80s, you've got to remember. So it's a bit different now.
I do remember you saying on the YouTube show that you, when you were younger, automatically assumed your body parts were the same as your female friends. So when you walked in and saw your friend, it was like, hang on, why doesn't she have what I have? Because I feel the same way as she does, but we look different. Exactly,
because my head is always with the girls. I just thought that way, and I didn't understand that. I was 9 years old. I didn't know. You're asexual. I didn't know what that was for, or what anything was for. I just didn't know why I didn't have the same. And then my mum was like, well, I can't really explain. And then she knew. She explained to me later on in life, a few years down the road, that she knew what was going on for certain reasons of her own, and she couldn't explain to me because I was too young.
So, at what age did you start the process of transitioning into a woman?
Well, legally 16.
Legally?
Well, doctor's signature 16. I did get hold of some little hormones before that, only a few months before. 16, my mother and father took me to GP and signed everything for me, and hey, you had to have an adult with you. So, and that's how that ball got rolling. But then I moved out to Spain for a couple of years to completely transition. I didn't want to do it in a carry on, sorry.
How did your family and friends react? I mean, I do remember you saying beforehand that you were very lucky with the support you had from your family.
Very lucky with my family. The friends things I'll get out of the way quickly. There were friends that I thought were friends, but then gay guys, but it was the 80s. And then when I was, changed to be a girl, they weren't interested, but they weren't really friends in the first place. But my family were really, really supportive. My dad, extra supportive. And my sister and my brother was a little bit iffy to start off with, probably because I was taller than him and he didn't like that. But no, he took a little bit to warm up to, because he really didn't understand anything. Whereas, the girls in the family were a bit more understanding. But, think back early 80s, Gareth, it was very, very different back then. So I was very lucky, they were there through the whole procedure, through the whole surgical procedure later on when I did it at 21. They were there when I went to sleep. They were there when I woke up, so I was so blessed, because there's a lot of people that don't have that still these days.
Well, I know. And could you talk to us about the whole process of transitioning? I know it's quite a long process, but from, initially looking at the doctor and you're getting I'm guessing it was estrogen tablets you got given.
I still take the same ones.
And you still take them.
Exactly the same
From that
ones.
initial, meeting with the doctor up until your final transition surgery, could you talk
Okay,
us through the whole process?
okay. So, God, it's a long time ago. So, you get signed off by the GP for hormone replacement, and then you have to see a psychiatrist. You have to identify for 2.5 years as in the female role before anything can ever take place. This was back then. So I saw the psychiatrist twice, but then I moved to Spain for a couple of years to completely just transition. And then I came back when I was 19 and then carried on seeing the guy for 2 years from 19 to 21 leading up to surgery. And just all in that time, I was just living completely as a girl, and then that process come to the final destination, the final thing. And I did that on April the 23rd, 1988.
And would you say that was the moment where you felt that your body then matched your mind?
Oh God, Gareth, honestly, it's funny because I've just been video chatting with one of my little house daughters who's just had it done 3 days ago.
Oh, really?
So I was video chatting with her before she went down, and I could just see when the next day afterwards she had this look in her eyes that I know oh so well. It's just how can I describe it? It's just, can you imagine if you woke up tomorrow and your mind was saying that you shouldn't have downstairs what you've got downstairs, Gareth? Can you imagine that feeling? But literally, your mind is controlling that every moment of it. So once that's matched, for me, everything else just fell into place.
I remember you saying on our YouTube channel that's when you felt for the first time normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Because my mind, when I looked in the mirror completely naked, it just all matched. Whereas before, it made me want to throw up.
Yeah,
I couldn't bear looking at what I was seeing.
And anyone that's listening to this who is young, maybe 16 or maybe even younger, who is thinking this might be the route that I want to go down, what advice would you give to them?
Okay, so advice I would give to them. You see, this is great actually, because back then there was nobody really to give me advice and stuff like that. I just want to point out that back in the early 80s, we didn't have social media, we didn't have camera phones, we didn't even have all this technology. So we had to live very privately. And if you were lucky enough to pass, as they say, then you could blend in and but you couldn't be open about being trans or anything back in then, because you'd get a punch in the face. But my advice would be now that, first of all, talk to somebody you can trust. That's the main point, whether it's a brother, a sister, an auntie, uncle, a mother, a father, a very close friend, but it has to be somebody you can completely trust before you talk to anybody about it. But you should talk to somebody about it. And then there's so much out there, Gareth. There's so many things now that young trans people can get in touch with, and just kind of make it easier, hopefully. Well, I know it's easier now. I hope it is. I really do. But speaking to the young guys these days, they do find it. Well, they don't know what it was like for us back then, so they can't really compare to whether it's easy or bad. But yeah, just speak to somebody and get that ball rolling. And don't think, how can I put this? Because it was so long ago in an era. I'm just trying to take myself back to that way of thinking in that era. Don't let anybody tell you that you're not when you know you are. But then the thing is it's also, you have to understand for the younger people that there has been people in the past that have thought they're trans, literally gone through everything, and they somehow got through it, and then they take their own life. And sorry for saying that, but it's happened a lot over the years. So it's something you will know if you know.
Well, that was my next question would be, do you think there's an age that you think is the most acceptable age to go through the transition process? Because as there might be people who think they want to be, change into, the opposite sex, and then realize when it's too late, actually they didn't. And then, like you say, feel there's no other way out. So do you think there should be a minimum age, or is there a minimum age? I don't even know.
For me personally, I think 16.
Okay.
Because a lot of things you can do in this country at 16 years of age. And I just think your mind's a little bit more, people are not going to like me saying this, but when I hear of 9 years old taken and I don't know. I think 16 is more, that's just my view. I did that. So it kind of, I'm not going to say it worked for me. But the good thing now is back then in the day, if you were paying privately, you could skip certain things. I mean, I paid privately, but I went through all. But you could skip certain things because you need to know it's absolutely right what if you are genuinely trans, because you can there's so much out there today where you can identify, non-binary, gender fluid, you can dress up as a boy, as a girl, and all these amazing things that you can do now in 2022, which are amazing. And I absolutely love every bit of it. But you have to know how to distinguish which is which.
Yes.
Because some people think, oh, well, I feel more confident as a girl, then dress as a girl and be fierce.
Yeah.
But you're not necessarily a girl, or the other way around. I feel more comfortable dressing as a boy. Do you see what I'm saying with that? So it's that whole, for me, it's that scary middle ground sometimes where, somebody's bullied because of something, and then they think, well, I don't get bullied when I'm like this, or maybe that's who I really, it's just growing up as well. Your teenage years are so impressionable.
Oh gosh,
especially now with social media and stuff, Gareth.
Mm-hmm. And
Natasha, you touched on when you said about back in the day, it was quite easy for someone if you could pass as a female and, live as a female for them 2 years. Did you get any negativeness, say, during them 2 years or anything like that?
Well, I don't want to sound narcissistic. No, not really.
No.
I and my best friend Graham, who's been my friend for decades and decades, he always brings me back down to ground with everything. And he always taught me many years ago, he said, be blessed of what you've got, because there's so many girls out there, or guys, that haven't got the luxury of passing as cis woman. I did, so I didn't really suffer. I saw a lot of people suffering, and I was the one that always got into the fight to get them out of the situation, because I won't tolerate that kind of stuff. But no, I was really, really blessed with that. What people said behind my back, I've no idea. It's none of my business, Lee. But, I never really, I had a few moments, where if I was out in groups of trans girls and stuff, we get picked on and stuff, and then I would be dragged into it. But generally, no, I've always thanked the Lord that I was passable. And I don't want that to sound,
But I do think it's interesting, because people then, they feel like entitled to judge you if you don't look what you say you are. So if you look like, that's obviously, a man in there. But if you look like a woman, it would be different. So it's almost like you're a better transsexual woman if you look like one. And I just think it's so wrong. It's
so wrong, because, but the thing that always people say gives me away is my voice. Now, I refuse to change my voice. I refuse to go, hello, my name is, because I just couldn't do it. So most people would question me when I open my mouth. If you're talking visually, never got clocked. When I open my mouth a few times, people were like, and they would start questioning, and then the conversation would go into whatever. But yeah, I just think that's the beauty of it now. I think living in this day and age, that, the freedom of, if you want to have your hair how you want it, or you want to wear lipstick, or you want to be feminine or butch, or whatever you want to be on any given day, it's much more acceptable. And this is going to sound a bit weird, but I'm so glad I've lived long enough to see these changes.
Yeah, 100%.
Because for me, that's just, when I see it on the internet and I think, oh, fantastic, look at you living your best life right now. On the television now, you see, everything that you would never see 30 years ago, 40 years ago, ever. You just wouldn't.
And do you mind the term being a trans woman, or are you just a woman?
See, I never really, this is where the thing now that comes in, and especially since I found the internet, the old social media, there's all these, what are your pronouns, there's all these things and that, and I'm like, well, I've never really identified as a trans woman. I just identify as a woman, but I've never said I'm a cis biological, because we never use those terms. I did what I had to do to make myself normal in my head, and I'm just a female. But yeah, if somebody asks me, if they say, oh, are you a transgender? Well, I say, yeah, I'm never going to say, no, I'm not, because, I won't deny. But I don't walk into somewhere and say, oh, I'm Miss Natasha, I'm a transgendered woman. I don't do that. But I don't mind people using that term. No, not at all.
You're not offended by it? No.
No, God, no. I've been called a lot worse things than that, believe me. By you, in fact, Gareth, when we met.
I know.
It was in the nightclub, darling.
It was in the nightclub, and you deserved it.
Popping and dropping, we were.
That was a good time, wasn't it?
It was, Lee. We had a great time. Oh, you were.
Okay.
All right.
Next time, Lee, you'll join us.
Definitely.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Gareth.
I've got a list of lots of questions here as well, because I spoke to my family and friends and said, we've got, our beautiful Miss Natasha coming back on. Do you have any questions that you want me to put to her? And one of them was, do you feel triggered talking about your childhood as a boy?
Yes, it does trigger me, and that's why I don't do it. unless I have to.
Yeah, of course.
Which all these years down the road, since I haven't been a boy, you can't even see what I'm doing with my, you can see it. Since I haven't been addressed in that gender, it's been, since I was 16. So it's 40 years ago.
Yeah.
39 years.
And another question was, how did you choose the name Natasha then?
My daddy did that for me.
What did he?
Because I had two names lined up, Isabella and Natasha. Now I was hoping he would pick, and because my dad named my dead name, I thought it was only right and lovely for him to name my other name. So he picked Natasha. Yes, thank you,
Daddy.
Daddy.
That's such a lovely thing. When you told us, and then you've spoke to me off camera as well, the way I thought that was such a lovely thing that they did.
I just think it was, I just think it's right, and he was so tickled by that. So I said, you've got two. And he said, what are the two? Instead of Natasha or Isabella, like that. And he just went, oh, Natasha, that sounds nice. And like,
I like both, but obviously we know you as Miss Natasha, so you're always going to be Natasha.
Isabella's my working name. No, I'm kidding. that's the name in the OF department. Don't worry about that. No, I'm kidding. I am joking. Do not go and search it. You won't find it.
Just to discuss, like, say, for instance, do you have a passport?
Yeah.
And what is because obviously on the passport it says male or female, or so is your
Miss Natasha, my name.
And then it's got, does it
female?
I've
never had a male passport in my life. I've never had a male bank account in my life.
This is another thing as well. So does the fact that I could turn around tomorrow and identify as a female and ask them to change my passport to a female without going through any sort of transitioning, does that upset you, knowing what you had to go through?
Oh, is that what you can do now, is it?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what they're trying to fight.
Right. I went through a lot to get that and never have any trace of the dead name. The only thing that worries me, I ain't bothered if people can do that quickly or not. If it's genuine, fantastic.
Yeah.
But then I always worry about, undesirable people using that for other things,
Yes.
And that bothers me a little bit.
Yes.
But I'm sure, if they pass that bill, I'm sure that, it won't just be as simple as that.
Yeah.
But, I got that because my mum and dad signed the papers, but you have to remember it's all these years ago. And it was a little paper passport, my first one. Do anybody remember the paper passports?
No.
We're too young, darling.
Right. Yeah, well, it was a little paper. It was like a temporary passport you could get if you're going on holiday. So I got that first, and then all the letters from the GP, my deed change of name, because I changed my name by Depol when I was 16. So it's all, you have to take all the documents and then you can get your passport. And they were very lovely at the UK passport office because they must have thought I was a special case, obviously because of sensitivity back then. So I was rushed straight through into a little room. I didn't have to sit with anybody. Well, then, so that was great for me. Yeah. They were doing it. I think they were being sweet, and it was just like, in case. But then I rolled up and I was like, oh, thanks, guys. This is fabulous. Thanks very much. Treatment. I'm off to Spain. So no, when I opened a bank account, I opened it up in Natasha. I've never had anything in any name, but
I think with you, it's very straightforward. You are a woman. You have the body parts of a woman. When it gets complicated as someone who is more on the gender, neutral, or how they identify as a woman, but they want to not go through the surgery. And that's when I think people get a little bit confused. And this is where the generation I'm finding now are struggling with, especially my parents and stuff. They're like, I don't understand that. I knew that it was, if you wanted to be a woman, you transitioned into a woman. You wanted to be a man, you transitioned into a man. You got the parts. You're then biologically, even if it has been through surgery, a man or a woman. What they struggle to get their head around is the people that we're going to have upcoming episodes on it as well, like we did on YouTube, is the people who want to be both. I feel like a woman today, so I'll be a woman. I'll feel like a man today, so I'll be a man. Or actually, I'll be neither. So this is when I think a lot of people are struggling to accept, because it was a little bit more straightforward back then. It was kind of black and white back then.
The thing, see, my view on that is I've always had this, being a trans woman, I've always had this mind of, be who you want to be, live your best life, and nobody should judge you for what you want to wear, da, 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 da. Now, it was very, back in my day, it was very black and white. I'm really old school. So sometimes if I may come across on this podcast a little bit cut and dry about something, because that's my experience only. You know, I've been alive for 55 years, and luckily I got to do it very, very young, because I wouldn't have been around if I didn't be able to do it. If the surgery wasn't possible, I wouldn't be here right now. That's a fact. We know that. I know that. But, you know, it's these days, it's just, I don't think people should bother so much if somebody wants to identify as a boy one day or a girl the next day or a can of potatoes the day after. As long as they're not hurting anybody or hurting themselves, then I have got I'm gorgeous for that. I love for that kind of thing. But the thing is, as long as you know that when you're jumping from gender each day, it is just jumping genders. You're not actually, whereas when you're genuinely transgendered either way, the only end goal is that for you. You know, you're not going to change it. It's like, I'm not suddenly going to say, oh, I'm going to be a boy today, because I'm not. And it's got nothing, it's just, I'm not, because in my head, I know exactly. So if I just sometimes get a little bit scared with the younger generation that, you know, it's so easy to jump from one to the other. And I can see what the older generation, how they find it hard. But sometimes it can be a bit confusing, and just sometimes it's a bit scary because, you know, as I said, people go through with things that maybe they regret, and then they have to reverse, and then they start suing people. And if the psychiatrists had done their job properly in the first place, people wouldn't be reversing and suing anybody, would they now, really?
And that's why I still agree that you need to see a therapist before you go through any sort of gender realignment surgery. You must see a therapist, 100%.
No. Even to when I was in the office signing the consent form before the surgery, the psychiatrist took 10 minutes with me.
Just to make sure, 100%.
He knew.
Yeah.
But he said, I have to do this. You know, it's my job. I need to ask you. And he asked me a series of questions. I'm not going to say, well, they're quite personal. He asked me those. I answered them best of my ability. And he said, okay, that's good. Sign the paper. I knew I wanted to sign it anyway. But, you know, it's just a lot of rigorous. And it just scares me these days that there's not so much rigorous things, because people don't want to be seen as being what's the word I'm going to use?
Discriminatory.
Discriminatory, that's it. The whole circuit. Yeah, people don't want to be seen as, you know,
people don't want to get cancelled. And I think, you know, whilst it's amazing what we're living in a kind of world just now with social media, it's also quite scary, because when you were younger, you didn't have all these influences to make you think, actually, I think I will be trans. You just knew without any outside influence. Whereas the kids nowadays, as old as that makes us all sound, they're seeing so much on TV and the internet that maybe they are getting influenced to be maybe something they're not, because they think it's maybe going to save them in a way, or make them cooler and more appealing to the world, get them more followers on TikTok. And that's where I think, yes, that's fine. If you want to, that's fine. But you still need to go through the whole process of seeing a therapist until they sign you off to say, yep, after all these, because they're trained for it, they know that you are in the right frame of mind to go through the surgery, or to actually change what's on the paper on your birth certificate or passport that you are he or she or they or whatever it is. There's a process to protect the person.
Yeah, funny, I never changed my birth certificate. Yeah.
Really?
No, because I don't. Why? I've got a passport. Why do I need to do that?
Well, yeah, I mean, birth certificates nowadays don't really. I don't think it's that important.
I've got no trace of you know, that's in a piece of paper. But what you're saying, Gareth, is absolutely true. It's like, you know, my whole new thing is how I met you guys in the whole TikTok business, social media. I could hardly press a button on my phone, to be honest. And then, you know, when I see all these young influencers, you know, and what it is you have to be careful, because it's more free now to wear a dress or dress in the opposite gender and go out and feel safe. Generally in London, you can feel safe doing that. And hopefully a lot of places in England you can. I know there's some you can't, which is unfortunate, it makes my blood boil. But it's, you know, and it does change. That's why drag queens, they love going out in drag, because they get all this attention. And unfortunately, and I just saw it on RuPaul's Drag Race versus the World yesterday, that Blue Hydrangea started questioning whether he was trans or not.
Yep.
And this is the point, and I can see what you're trying to say, and it's the influence, you know. Well, I live and breathe Blue Hydrangea. Oh, I love you, Blue Hydrangea. If you ever listen to this, I think you're fierce, darling. But you know what I mean? Even he questioned, and it's so, and yet he realized I'm not, and that's brilliant.
Because their world get muddled. They forget who they are.
And if you're quite vulnerable as well, you know, and and that's what worries me, Gareth. So all the things you're saying about this is me very black and white thinking. So it's, you know, and it's nice to know that you know both sides of it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I'm glad I was, you know, I was born in 89. I still saw a world before kind of the internet came about. So I remember both sides. That's why people in their 30s or 40s, they remember what it was like both ways. You know, and 50s and what plus anyone younger don't really know a world pre-internet, pre-influencers, pre-everything. They don't get it as much. And I'm glad I saw both sides of it. 100%.
So when I was having the old cut and shut, you were just a brother of one.
I was, yes.
Oh, did I just say cut and shut? Oh, darling. You know how it goes. I can hear Lee chuckling.
Oh dear. Right.
But yeah, it's so much to it, isn't there? See, this is the thing when I talk on trans issues, it's like, and people go, well, you can't really say that. I'm like, well, why can't I? I've been through it, and I see things differently to you youngsters, and I'm not pulling out the age card, but it's just a fact.
Yeah.
I've had to learn a lot over the past 2 years about things, you know, things that, you know, I've had to learn a lot over the past 2 years.
Yeah. And same with us, you know, we and this is why we do the show, because we're educating ourselves as well. We learned a lot during the non-binary episode and the gender identity episode, and we're going to get these people back on to discuss it, because it's still confusing to a lot of people out with our own community, even just don't get it, but they're still willing to learn and educate themselves. You know, what I will not tolerate is people who just are ignorant and not respectful.
Yeah, not willing to learn. Yeah,
not willing to go with the times. Otherwise, they're just going to be the ones left behind. So I feel that, you know, there's still a lot to learn, because we're open to learn it, because people have been more tolerating of us, you know, throughout, you know, history. So we should be more tolerant about other people coming out with new terms. We should be open to all.
You know, I've got used to. I used to make jokes on my live streams and stuff. You know, people say, "What are your pronouns?" And normally they say it for joke, but then I've realized, you know, I used to say "bibbidi bobbidi boo" or "bada bing bada boom," but people are generally they don't want to offend me, so I immediately say she and her.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I realized this person on the other side of the screen, you know, is a youngster, and they don't want to offend an elder, which is, when I think about it, it's so sweet, because, you know,
it's amazing. Yeah. And well, when we had the guests on who are non-binary, they said the only people that tend to have problems with it are older people. You know, the younger generation don't have an issue with it, because obviously they're living it, whereas the older generation will just refuse to change or educate themselves, which is that's the problem.
But you have to change with the times. Is, you know, it's just, at first I thought it was just, you know, people trolling, and it's not. People genuinely don't want to offend you.
Yeah.
So, you know, if their pronouns, when I go into some live streams, I will ask, and, you know, and that's because I'm open to all this new stuff to learn, and, you know, it's important, because it's a two-way street. You know, if I want somebody to respect me that way, I have to respect them the same way.
Absolutely.
You know.
So another question that I've got for you is your thoughts on the media attention around trans athletes competing alongside cisgendered females, because obviously that got a lot of attention, negative attention, from someone who is, you know, biologically male, who fully transitioned into a woman, but is competing alongside cisgendered women who are biologically women, out of the womb women, and they were like, well, that's not fair. That person's got a biological advantage because of their bone mass, because of this, because of their height, blah, blah, blah. And there was a huge thing about, should they be allowed to compete alongside cisgendered? And I was like, ooh, I'm going to ask Natasha that question.
Yada, yada, yada. That's the first answer I've got for that shenanigans. I was screaming at the telly. Now, funny you should bring that up. Listen, I know cis biological women that are 10 times stronger than most men.
Yep.
So it's kind of, what's the word? I'm terrible for this kind of terminology. It's double standards sometimes.
Yeah, they want equality, but they're not allowing it.
Exactly. Now, I think it's not like, now this is my view, and this is why I got so angry, apart from all the stuff that's going around it. My immediate thought is, now, it's not like this athlete decided, oh, I'm going to change my gender. I'm going to, you know, go through the whole procedure and everything, and then I'm going to go and compete against cis biological women just so I can win.
And that's how it was shown.
let me go through all this surgery and all this trauma that people never really see unless you talk openly about it, just so I can win a medal. No, they don't do it for those reasons. They do it because they've got no choice. I had no choice. I was 14 years old trying to dismember myself. We had this conversation, Gareth.
We did, yeah.
That's how much I hated what was there. I certainly wouldn't do something to change my whole gender to gain something other than to be normal in my own head.
Yeah.
So it's just people jumping on the bandwagon to slag us transgender men and women off yet again.
Yep.
But we stand strong.
Yep, exactly. And it brought out a fight, which I know it's like a constant uphill battle. There's always something, but it did bring out a lot of the people who were behind it. You know, people actually surprised me. I didn't think we'd be behind it. We're like, no, actually, this person is went through everything. This person is a woman. So is this person supposed to go and compete with the men? Or should there be a new category? And you're like, no, don't be silly. If this person has gone through the same training as a woman, they should be the same.
Exactly. And, you know, to go through all that surgery and all the trials and tribulations you go through just to win a medal.
No. You wouldn't. No one cares that much.
You would stay male, like, I'm not going to mention the name. You would just stay there for all those years and then transition, wouldn't you? You'd get your golds that way. Hello.
But that's the thing. People are like, oh, they're cheating, they're this. But that's when I think the whole thing can, if I decided, actually, I'm going to go and compete with a women. I want to be in the women's team because it's easier. I'll just put down on the paper that I identify as a woman. Just that, of course, that should not be allowed because come on. Whereas if you can prove you've gone through the whole process, you know, properly with your therapist, then what's the problem? It's clearly not just to cheat.
She's gone through all that just to get a medal.
No way.
It doesn't work that way. It's just
yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up because that's my view on it.
It's because it's still relevant because it was, you know, all over social media, and my family member was like, "Ask Natasha that," and I was like, "I will." So that's
the reason I was screaming at the telly because I was like, "Do you really think she went through all this just
to win?" Yeah,
and it's also they're saying that everything she's been through is not valid because she's still a man.
Yeah,
imagine how that poor woman must have felt when she shuts the door at night.
Because her victory was overshadowed by the negative press. Because it wouldn't have been the same if she lost.
Yeah, if they were saying that to me about something, you know, just say I snatched a crown one day and they were like, oh, well, you know, I would be really hurt. I wouldn't show it, but I would be hurt on my own. You're
like, I won it because of my talent and my ability.
Exactly.
Not because I used to be a man. And
that's so
wrong.
It's bigoted behavior and we still have it. And I always say to the children of our community, you know, keep laying the bricks on that road because I'll be dead long and gone. Keep laying them. It may not be easy sometimes to get that next brick down, but keep going forward. Don't ever take a brick up.
100%.
And you're going to come up against, you know, some stuff, but you just keep going forward. And it is getting easier. And I've seen it get easier. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it'll ever be completely, you know, I don't know the word. I don't even know the word.
You can say the exact same thing about obviously being gay. It's never, ever going to be 100%.
No.
Never, because religion's always going to be with us. There's always going to be people that will never accept it. It's going to be better, and it is a lot better, but it's never going to be 100%.
Well, they stopped jailing homosexual men just after I was born.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In the UK, you were jailed for being homosexual. Lesbians did not get jailed because it wasn't seen as a homosexual act because they were two females. But did you see the thing a couple of years ago about all the pardons they're all getting now?
Yes, I do remember. And we spoke about that during Pride episode because, again, I didn't know that. And I remember Reese bringing it up, saying that you forget that it wasn't actually that long ago you were jailed just for being gay. And I was like, you think it's like ages ago, and it's like, it wasn't. It was only 50 odd years ago.
Yeah, just before I went around when I was born. It's just, you know, people, but I suppose it's, you know, if you're not born in those generations, why would you think about what things were like, you know, or what, because you weren't there. No. And you can hear what the elders say, but you're like, you still weren't there. So it's, you know, it's like the whole thing with It's a Sin when people say, watch it. And I was like, well, I don't really want to because I want to remember the good things about that era. I don't want to be reminded of all the horror and the death that I went through.
Exactly.
I'd like to remember the good things.
So that's why I haven't
watched. Because I was in it.
Yeah.
You know.
I do. Lee, any other questions, my darling? I've got some more, but I feel like I need to hand the mic to you.
Well, Just touching upon on your intro, you said that you're a house mother. Would you just be able to explain what that is to the listeners?
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I just got distracted by something on the telly. I do apologise. The volume's down. Oh, hello, sir. Oh, sorry about that. Anyway, so there's if you watch the series Pose, Paris is Burning, the house mothers, the house fathers, boots the house down, vogue the ball down. I was part of a house called the House of Child in my youth, and unfortunately our mother died many years ago, and I just kind of started like the House of Deville because I've got a few trans girls that they're younger than me, and when I used to work in this trans bar, which is no work at the moment, but it will come back soon, so they all start calling me mama, and and you just advise in that. But the nice thing is not having them live with me. But a house mother is, it's like the prime example is my baby Jessica just went in for a surgery. So, I was going to go and visit her. She couldn't have any visitors because of the COVID or what have you. So I've been on the video call with her, she's asking questions before she goes down. You just got to be there for the younger generation. It's like a motherly figure. It's like an elder in the community. And there are some house mothers, still go to balls. They want their children to go out and snatch trophies. Mine are normally peddling flesh, which is okay. Some of them work in a bank. Who knew? But that's okay. But the authentic housing is going to the balls. We used to go to the balls in the 80s in London. We loved it, with all the houses and stuff. You used to come down from up north. But yeah, it's just kind of like being an elderly member of the trans community, and I get a lot of young trans coming through in my lives and on my social media and stuff, and of both sides. And they ask questions privately and stuff like that. So it's just guidance, really. And you get nice things at Christmas.
Yeah, you mentioned with your lives as well. So obviously back in the 80s, there was no social media or anything like that. So now we've got TikTok, we've got Instagram, we've got Twitter, we've got Facebook, Grindr, video calls, and things like that as well. And obviously, have you gone through both of the positives and the negatives? I'm guessing, through your lives of possibly abuse you may get, and then you've got maybe people actually looking at you as someone who's gone there, been there, done that, and you've said as well yourself, they're looking up to you and then asking advice and this and that. So there are people out there like yourself that you can get advice from. It's not like you're on your own.
But that's a good thing, because back in my day, you just had your close friends. You didn't have, now you could be somebody living in the depths of Arkansas, no trans anything around you, and you can click onto somebody's live and communicate with them. The thing, me, Lee, with my lives on TikTok, I'm a very strict house mother I don't have any drama. I don't have people say rude. It's a safe place. I have a core number of people in every day. That's great. And we talk about all sorts, because I want somebody to be able to be themselves and be open and not be judged.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't talk about is religion and politics in my lives, because that gets a bit heated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never had that. The perks of not having that back in the day was that you could be, skanky as you like, and nobody could have any evidence, which is really, really good.
You also didn't have access to so many trolls, because there's a lot of negativity as well as a lot of positivity. You do get a lot of negativity, especially on TikTok. There's just a lot of hate out there.
Gareth, let me tell you, honey, there certainly is. But the thing with me is because I'm older, is that I don't get affected by those things. As if I was in my teenager and somebody was trolling me, I would probably get really affected, because I've lived all this time and I've dealt with life off the social media. I know they're just behind the screen and I can block them at any moment. So I've built up over the past year a little environment where they know that they're not going to have that in the live. People don't, funny enough, bother to come and troll me, because they probably know I ignore it. I don't even answer them.
They get no reaction, so what's the point? Because
once you give a troll the reaction, then you're giving them more oxygen. Mm-hmm. If you totally blank it, they can't breathe.
Yeah.
So if you don't give them anything back, they're stuck. They cannot breathe. The moment you react, good or bad, they've got you.
Yeah. And that's why
so just don't react. Yeah. So just don't react.
Yeah.
But that's easy for me to say, because I'm a bit tougher, Gareth.
But if you're leading by example, then you can pass that on to the younger generation.
Exactly. Well, I've got a couple of young trans girls that have just started going live themselves, and they say, "Oh, it's so great because I use that ethos in my lives, and they're building a nice little, a little repertoire in there. So it's, but that's what I want to create. It's enough hatred in the world. There's enough bigotry. There's enough nonsense going on. Let's just be nice to each other.
Yeah,
definitely, 100%.
Amen. Yeah.
But maybe it's age, boys. Who knows?
So that brings me on to a nice segue into the next question, because you said you're a mother to these people. Have you ever wanted to be a mum in real life?
No, I hate children.
Full stop.
Yeah, no, yes, oh my God, I so did. Yeah, I really, I always had I always had the dream of 2 boys, maybe twins, perfect, just do it once. Yeah, I mean, my first love, I moved to Israel for. Yeah, we were going to adopt and stuff, or surrogate or whatever. But yeah, things didn't, for whatever reason, turn out. But yeah, as I got older and I started traveling around the world, that got less and less and less. And then I just sort of, my sister had the kids, my brother, so I sort of was an auntie and stuff like that. But I would love to have had to given birth to my own child, and for the experience.
Well, I think when I've heard lots of other transgender women speaking about the hardest thing about being a trans woman is the fact that they're never able to give birth naturally to a child, because they feel that's what reminds them that they're not a biological woman, and that's what they find really difficult.
But then I'd speak to a lot of trans girls that have said that to me, and I said, listen, don't ever think that it reminds you of the way you were born, because there are millions of women out there like you that can't have children, and there's biological cis women, they cannot birth. So don't, I find sometimes when people say, oh, that's the one thing, it's because of, well, no, don't undermine the thousands of millions of women out there that are in the same position as you.
Who are biological. Yeah,
so you're not alone with it. It's not.
No.
See, this is what I'm trying to say. Maybe I'm doing this the wrong way around. What I say to them, don't let that bother you so much. Think about the biological women that can't have either. Don't let that bother you so much. You can adopt as surrogates. But I do know that feeling. I wanted to give birth to my own child, but I know that's not going to happen. So at a very young age, I accepted that fact. And then, things didn't turn out how I wanted, and here I am. And now I've got 154,000 of the little buggers.
And you're a cool auntie Natasha.
Oh my God, I love being auntie. You see, I love that.
Because you can hand them back.
Exactly, and I get to take them places that their mum and dad don't want to take them.
Yeah.
Like London Dungeon, mortuaries, graveyards, that kind of stuff.
100%.
Show them what's to come.
Scare them.
But no, I always say to a lot of other trans sisters and brothers, don't let that bog you down too much. No. Because it's not. You shouldn't. I've never felt that I can't have children because of the way I was physically born. I just in my head, I just can't. I'm unable to have children like many other women in the world. Yeah. So I don't let that. What I'm trying to say is, I don't let that sit in my head. That might be one of the reasons. I don't let that live in my head rent free. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, 100% it does. Yeah.
Yeah,
great.
Definitely.
So again, we asked this in our YouTube channel, but I thought it was quite interesting to touch on again. Do you struggle, being a trans woman, to date or find love?
Yes.
Elaborate, please.
Okie dokie. Okay, now I'm saying yes, but then nowadays, no. But then the COVID shot, so I haven't had a chance to go out and investigate that.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it was very difficult because, I don't want to sound narcissistic, but because I was passable visually, I would go out straight by a guy who would check me out, and then I'd go out on the day, and then I would just, I was already post-operative. But I still, if it was a one-night stand, I never had to, I don't have to bother to tell them. Not that I've had many of those, please understand that. But I just think it's important you do. But there are, it has been difficult for me because it's not so much the partner that I'm going to be with, it's their friends and family they're worried about normally. It's a reaction of them, but they're not actually dating me. But it's it has been difficult, yeah. But now with this whole wonderful world of, the 21st century, and being transgendered isn't something that, that is so, how can I say, so an abomination.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's, it's more accepted now. So it's a lot easier. But yeah, then the COVID struck. So
the big
but I find when I go out, even if I'm not somebody's type, a guy or something, and then we're talking and I say, and it comes up with trans, to say, oh, that hasn't, or somebody said a joke, they say, oh, is it because she's trans? And he went, no, actually, it doesn't really bother me at all. She's just not my type. And that, you see, sometimes people think it's because of.
Yeah.
It's not your type.
You just no, it's nothing to do with that. You're just not my type. Yeah.
But me personally, I don't know if it's to do with being a trans woman. Maybe it's I just keep picking the wrong men. If I'm really honest about it, I don't think it's much to do with the transition bit. I think it's because I keep going for a certain type.
And what is your certain type?
Oh, darling, if you want me to say, okay, 6'3" minimum, shaved head, bit of a goatee, covered in tats, hairy chest, about 30, 35, and he just screams white supremacy, although I don't want them to be that. But that's the visual thing I like to go for, and I do like a naughty boy.
It sounds like the very stereotypical bad boy. And you also just described Lee.
Yeah, but that would be...
I'm not 6'3" though. And that's
I know you're not.
A bit of a short arse, yeah.
But it's just, yeah, but because as I start explaining that question, Gareth, I start thinking it's not really to do with me being trans. It's just I keep making wrong decisions with guys.
You're too picky.
Do you know that's what it is? Because a lot of people, you see me now, you know what I'm like, but when I'm out and we're having fun at Pride and non-Pride, but if I meet somebody I like, I get quite shy.
I'm the same. Yeah.
I get very shy around them and it irritates me, but I can't help it. So, but yeah, I just think dating's a minefield anyway. I mean,
my God, we're going to do a whole episode on that because as someone who, and now we're both single, me and Lee here, it's not easy. I just hate the dating apps. I hate the whole experience, men, women, because I've got a straight friend who she's struggling as well. She's been messed around so much by these apps and people that she thinks it's going well, all of a sudden they just ghost her, and I'm like, it's not just the gay scene, it's everyone. It's everywhere. It doesn't. Yeah, that's the thing about it these days. It's not just gay, lesbian, straight. It's everybody across the smorgasbord that's happened to, because now with the joy of the internet and internet dating, I mean, I tried it a little bit and it was just, I was like, no. You're lying. Why are you lying? And because I catch people out all the time and I'm like, but you didn't say that to me yesterday. Are you texting the wrong person? It's just, I would rather meet somebody over the fruit and veg in a natural attraction. Yeah. Or when I'm putting the bins out looking like a beautiful, stunning, Oscar-winning hot mess at 6 a.m, and I'll meet my dream man. Probably be a dustman, but I'm not going to judge. This is what I think. It's just going to happen naturally, and I'll be saying this when I'm 85. I'm still waiting. But you know what? That's fine. Yeah. Because as long as you're living your best life in between, it's better to live your best life as opposed to settle down with something you're not someone that's not right for you. Yeah, it's not like I haven't snacked at the table a few times in my life where the boys are concerned. I've been to a few buffets in my time. Yeah. And I've gorged myself. So it's not fun. Like, exactly. I'll just get me a little puppy. Easier to handle.
I love a puppy.
I've got 2 here. Can't say that. That's another episode. Lee's actually seen them. Lee, do you have any other questions for our lovely guest? And Gareth's blushing, which I think is lovely.
I don't have any other questions at the moment, no.
So I've got 2 more questions, okay? Do you think trans, just full stop, should be taught in schools? Yes. What do you mean taught in school? Like that it's a thing, that if you've got these feelings, you can talk to someone about it, know that there's actually a way or there's a word for what you're feeling. Okay, not specifically trans. I think, when I was at school, sex education was a diagram on a blackboard, seriously. And the very uncomfortable, really bad Betamax movie. It was hideous. Yeah, I know. So I think every aspect of sex education should be included. Everything across the board, trans, gay, heterosexual, all that stuff. Sorry, I just slightly gagged then when I said that out loud. I'm only heterosexual by default, you understand, don't you? Love it. It's a swear word in here. Straight, you're straight. You're not allowed. Yeah, no, yeah, all right for a community. They're fine. They're okay. They're bobbing along, aren't they? But yeah, I just think it shouldn't be, because then it's almost like it's something different.
I mean, as in different, as in it's, see, in my day, nobody ever mentioned it, so I couldn't speak to anybody of it, so it was never an issue. But yeah, I just don't want it to be slightly sound excluded if it's just, I think it should be in the whole thing.
And we've said that about being gay as well. If it's all taught, you don't feel like you have to come out. You don't feel like it's something that, why isn't what I feel not being taught to me? Yeah. So if it's all taught, you're like, oh yeah, that is me. Or when you then come out or feel the need to tell someone, they can go, oh yeah, we learned about that in school the other day. It's not something that's...
It should be all inclusive.
Yes.
It should everything should be, so you're not made to feel that you're different in any kind of way from it, but you're not any more or less than any other community in the world.
100%. It's about evolving, isn't it?
Yes. But we're getting there. Consider, you see, this old heifer that you're speaking to has seen so many things. Trust me, boys, we are getting there.
It's a long journey, but we're going in the right direction.
It's like that midnight train to Georgia. We all want to get on it.
Yeah. Well, we're wanting teachers on as well. Like I've got a few friends that are teachers, and I want to know what is taught in school these days because, well, I just don't know.
Me too.
I was what 10 years ago or whatever, just over now. It's changing every year. I want to know: is every school different, or is it part of the curriculum that's enforced? I know Scotland is different to England and wherever, but I'm intrigued. I want to know.
I mean, it's also different now, but it's good.
Yeah.
That, there's just so many things that, when I see things on the news about, how things are evolving, I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And it just, all across the board, the things that are being changed and just realize, like mental health and stuff. It's like,
there's so much more awareness.
My mum wouldn't have been locked up having electro treatment back in the day if it had been more open.
Yeah.
Just things like that. So it's so lovely to see everything, moving forward
in the right direction. Yeah.
So when did we last do the thing? It was like 2 years ago, wasn't it? Nearly?
It would have been what, August, September 2020.
Yes, it's a year and a half ago.
Crazy.
20s, yeah.
Doesn't feel that long ago, does it?
No.
Like I always feel like 2021 just didn't happen.
Well, it did, because I met you, little heifers.
Well, you did, but it just went so quick. When I think back, I'm like, oh, that was last year. No, it was almost 2 years ago. And I'm like, bah.
Oh, sorry, FYI to the listeners, when I use the word heifers, I mean it with love. Thank you. Hey, heifers.
No, so me and Lee want to meet up again, because we met, well, God, that would have been, what, October 2020?
Last year?
No, that was 2020 me and Lee met.
Yeah.
Oh, what, you and Lee?
Me and Lee met.
Of course, when you did the videos.
That was a long time
and I was
ago.
like that. Oh. No, it was great. Oh, Lee, well, I'll make a special trip just for you, boo.
Well, we're definitely meeting up, Natasha, 100%.
Yeah, we certainly have.
I forget that you two haven't even met yet. Like, I always forget this. It's crazy.
But we talk a lot, so it's all. Well, he calls me a lot, Gareth, but
you're like, oh, it's him again.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on a live, Lee. And then he goes to check at the live, and I'm not.
I know the amount of times. Like, you've just interrupted my life. I'm like, oh, sorry.
So my last question to you would be: where can people listening find you online?
Okay, now thank you for that. Well, they can find you can find me. You see, I am, if any of you have not heard of Crazy Window Lady, I'm going to plug it shamelessly.
Do it. Love it.
I am the creator and the CEO of Crazy Window Lady Official on TikTok. It's a character. I'm not going to say much more, but that's where you can find her. One thing I'm also at Miss Natasha 1 on TikTok. Now, I haven't really been on there much because it's starting to feel like work for me. When I was lip syncing. Well, no, because I've been doing that all my life, and then it's starting to feel like I was working. So I will go back onto that. But you can find me on Instagram, Crazy Window Lady Official. It's just a crazy lady that hangs out the window, darling, and talks like that.
Sorry about that.
Oh, don't ever be sorry. But why am I slipping into her voice? I'm really sorry about this. I've no idea why. She just creeps up somewhere in my head.
But if you want to reach Natasha, we will send our links on our Instagram and all of our socials. I don't need to
say it.
No, don't you worry. And again, visit reallifegays.com to send us a message. If you've got any questions for Natasha, we can send them on to her as well.
Perfect. Or if you want to come into my lives and you can hang out, it'll be fantastic.
Yes. Absolutely. So are we ready, guys, to spin a wheel? Are we ready?
Go for it.
Are we ready?
Spin the wheel.
Tiffany, are you ready? Tiff, spin the
wheel. I'm
ready.
I've got my gown on.
Come on. Ooh.
Oh, okay. So,
Just a
would you
winner, baby.
rather? This is a would you rather. Would you rather not be able to speak for the rest of your life or not be able to hear for the rest of your life? Natasha, you're our guest. You go first, darling.
Oh.
I would like to not be able to hear for the rest of my life.
Really?
Yeah, because there's so many people yabba, yabba, yabba in my ears these days.
Are you still
Actually, no,
thinking
can I-
about our
can-
video calls?
No. Can I change that round? Can I swap that round? Sorry, that was a silly answer because I've just realised what that would entail.
Yes, a lot of work
Yeah, so we'll swap that round. I prefer it the other way. Yeah.
to not be able to speak.
Yeah.
Okay. Lee?
I wouldn't like to speak,
Ah.
but I'd like to listen and hear.
I think we're all the same. I'm exactly the same because I even though I'm doing a podcast now, I actually hate my voice. And I think it's very difficult
Me
to find
too.
someone who likes their own voice. It's very difficult.
Hate it.
And I think with technology now, you've got phones on you constantly. Your phone or your Apple Watch or whatever can do the talking for you. I would hate not to be able to listen to music again
Yeah.
or my favorite shows. It would not affect me at all watching movies, going out, not being able to speak because we've got so much technology that would help. So I think that was quite an easy one. We're all in agreement.
Well, these days, I mean, I'm glad I don't have to speak to many people. Quite nice.
I'd be like, sorry, can't speak, sorry.
But the reason for me, I wouldn't want to be able to miss out on having sweet nothings whispered in my ear by a big 6'3" bald-headed bear, if there's any of you out there.
Absolutely.
I live in London.
Pick me up, darling.
Well, you never know.
You never know. So thank you so much, Natasha, for joining us on this episode. We've loved having you and we hope it's been very educational for everyone. But as we said, you can reach Natasha on all of our socials. We will share them on our socials. Please remember reallifegaze@yahoo.com or visit reallifegaze.com for more information.
I just want to say thank you, boys, for having me on. It's absolutely lovely to come back after this time and just to chew the fat with you, as they say.
Exactly,
So
to
thank
catch up.
you so much. I've really enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, everybody. I've been Gareth.
And I've been Lee.
Thank you again, Natasha. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, boys.